Ladies and gentlemen, grab your gloves and get your compost ready. Stepping into the ring is the perennial powerhouse, the sultan of soil, the beast of the beds, where permaculture reigns, food grows wild, community roots run deep, and yes, the garden puns hit hard. Freedom starts in the soil. This is the Guerrilla Gardening Show.
Welcome back to the Guerrilla Gardening Show. I am Mike with Mike's in the Garden, here with Sam from Central Florida Abundance. What's happening, Sam?
What's going on, Mike? What's going on, y'all? Hopefully, everybody's staying warm. It's not too cold right now for us, but this episode will probably come out in January. It might be 30 degrees this weekend. Who knows? Make sure you're keeping your plants covered. But it is December. It's about mid-December, and I know in my yard, the plant that's doing the most right now is what we're going to talk about today, pigeon peas. They're starting to flower, starting to produce, and then you've got some young seedlings. So these look really good.
Yeah.
You want to tell us what you got here?
So these are from the Igo family farm. These are the
Sponsored.
ones you gave me when we were putting the garden in at Ice's house. And so these are just little small starter pots. As you can see, they get some afternoon sunlight, a little tiny bit in the morning. And I'd say these are probably 3 to 4 weeks that they've been in there.
Okay.
So certainly now that, we've got several leaves here, they're starting to grow pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I mean they will grow slower because it's, over the winter there's less daylight hours. So they'll probably be okay in these pots until, all chance of frost is gone and you can throw them in the ground.
Okay, so that was my question, Sam. Do you direct sow these, or do you seed start and transplant?
So still a good question because I actually prefer to direct sow my pigeon peas.
Okay.
They just germinate so easily. And I mean, if you have one mature plant, then you just have, more seeds than you're going to know what to do with, even if you are harvesting them to eat. Um, you know, if you only have one seed, if that's what you're starting with, like I think I gave you maybe, 10 to 15 seeds,
Mhm.
then it's probably better to start them in pots because it's not 100% germination rate. You can see here maybe two out of these didn't germinate.
Correct.
And so, if you had just thrown them in the ground, some of them might not pop up. Some of them could be, stepped on. They stay small for a little bit. So, doing it in a pot is a good way to start if you're just starting with a couple seeds. They don't like to hang out in pots too long. Oftentimes, I'll see pigeon peas at nurseries, and they'll be in, you know, 1 to 3 gallon pots and, a foot or two tall. And at that point, I would say that that's not worth the purchase.
Okay.
Um,
Why
they're
not?
gonna be they're not gonna do as well. They're gonna grow slower. They're gonna have a harder time adapting to real soil instead of, potting soil. And pigeon peas just grow so fast from seed. You know, you can plant seeds in the spring and have peas on them by the end of the year. So if you're spending $30 on a 3 gallon, 3 foot tall pigeon pea, it's not going to get you fruit any faster than putting a seed, yourself in the ground or in a pot. Um, and sometimes, it's worse. You spend that $30 on that pigeon pea, and it goes through transplant shock trying to adjust to your soils, and then it dies. And that's quite a bigger loss than just, one seed not making it. Um, but all that to be said, pigeon peas are extremely hardy. They're pioneer species, they're legumes, under the right conditions, they can produce their own nitrogen. Um, so, you know, it's a, even if you plant it in less ideal situations, it's got a good chance of surviving. But this is definitely the ideal way to do it, especially over winter, because you're going to have a head start in the spring. If you do get frost, you can cover these up. Um, Whereas if they were, scattered around the yard, they're probably not getting covered up. Um, Mine
Now,
certainly
if
won't get
one
covered, but
was to start a nursery and wanted to, let's say, sell pigeon peas, what would be, is this like the most you'd let them grow to before you'd sell them?
I think you'd make the most money selling seeds
Okay.
because you can sell, one pod of pigeon peas is going to give you 5 to 8 seeds, and say a pack of seeds is 15. That's 2 pods, maybe three, and then you sell that pack for $2 to $3.
Okay.
And so 3 pods is $3. Each plant's gonna make, hundreds of pods. And so then, you and also those seeds are gonna last a lot longer. I don't know anybody who does that. Any nurseries, usually they don't. I'd like to see more nurseries selling seeds. I think that'd
Yeah.
be nice too.
Yeah.
Um, but you definitely make way more money and give more value to your customers. You could probably make more money if you grew all these up to a 3 gallon and sold each one for $30. You'd make a lot of money as a business, but then your customers are probably going to have a lower success rate, and that may, impact your returning customers.
Well, let me tell you, this is the second time I've started some in pots from seed. And um, I forget if I up potted from these small ones here to like a half gallon, but I lost several transplanting. So I had about half a dozen. I think I gave one
Hmm.
away, and then the other ones I put in the yard. And so either they died transplanting from pot to ground, or they died up potting from small pot to large pot. And so of 6 or 7 that I had looking like this at one point, I ended up with zero. So it's probably, you know, good advice to, yeah, get some, just put them in the ground, grow them for seeds, and sell the seeds.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not hard to protect them in the ground. If you remember where you put it, if you flag it, wherever you put that seed in, if you can look back on this video, y'all, and then you can see what the seedlings look like. If you've got these popping up, these are your pigeon peas, especially if they're next to the area that you flagged. And then, they do take some time, even in the spring. It'll take a month or two before they really get any substantial size. And so, putting a small cage around it to protect it from animals, giving it some extra water here and there is always helpful. But yeah, I have uh, heard people and experienced myself that they don't really like to be transplanted. And that's just because, they're pioneer species. They grow quickly, they spread their roots fast. And if they get root bound in the pots, it's hard to recover from that. I think you'll be all right with these if you put them directly in the ground in like March, because realistically, that's 2 months, uh, beginning of March. And like I said before, the daylight hours are so few right now. They're not going to grow as quickly as they normally would. Um, so I think it'll be good. I think you can put these in the ground and have some success. Do you have any mature pigeon peas?
Um, Not at this time, but I'll show you since we're talking about growing things in the ground. I did transplant, and you can see this one here. This was last August, so August 2024. And you can see how tall it was. This one actually, it did tremendous. I mean, I was surprised that several months later, dozens of um, pea pods. Now, I don't know if you remember, these are things that I remember, Sam. Um, they were like a a dark brown pod. I don't think they ever greened or yellowed. And so whether that was some type of transplant shock, I mean, it took months before it got to that, but they were never really like, at to the point where I could chew them that they seemed edible.
Oh,
Um,
well, usually they'll be green well before they turn brown.
it was like
So,
a light brown, and then it went to a green. And I did read, obviously there's different varieties of pigeon peas.
so
Um,
many.
but and I'm trying to think, I think I got this, I think this was a cutting from
A cutting?
it was a cutting, unless you grew it
Oh,
from seed, but it was a plant swap I went to, and somebody had this pigeon pea. So it could have been from seed. Um, but that's how we ended up here. But um,
that's interesting. I mean, it could have definitely, you know, if it never produced viable edible pods, it was definitely stressed. I mean, I'm sure it grew a little bit before it produced, but it looks rough here. Um, Now I have a little clip of some pigeon peas that are in my yard, and they're all flowering right now. A big thing to know about the pigeon peas is they flower this time of year. They don't, flower all throughout the year. It's not going to be sporadic. They're all going to go right now, and then they'll go, into like early spring. They'll fruit for several months. All right. Make this full screen. Can you see this here?
I can see it. Yep.
So this is the top of one of my pigeon peas. And let me slow this down.
Now, okay.
So I'll zoom in and there, this one is just starting to flower. And I mean, it'll focus in, but the flowers are your stereotypical pea flowers. I think I gave up on those, but I definitely get some. Here we go. Yeah.
So this
So
thing's about 8 feet tall, then maybe taller.
yeah, at least 8 feet.
Okay.
And I do prune mine to be taller so that I can fit more in a small space.
Okay.
I keep the trunks pretty straight until they get to about 6 feet. And that's just, the dynamic of these systems, and my system in particular. You can make them into small bushes. But as you can see, here's another one here. I keep mine all very tall so that I can walk underneath them. They are kind of in the middle of my pathways, and I've had some crazy winds, but you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
see here how the trunk is just, I keep that pruned
Yeah,
and
it's
keep it
very
up.
hardy.
Uh, but when they do get tall like this, because they are pioneer plants, they're not super strong, and the wind can blow them a little sideways. But here's some young pods.
So when do we know they're ready? Because I think the ones I had, if I remember correctly, they felt like velvety at first, and
Yeah,
then kind
they're a
of,
little fuzzy.
yeah. And then so was it when they feel like actual green pea pod that they're ready, or how do we
No,
know?
so you know, you're going to want to pick them when they're, well, actually, there's a plethora of ways to pick them. These right here are not ready yet, but you can see these cells on the one on the left in the middle have swelled up. And so they are starting to form the peas. When they're, I mean, really, when they're like this, you can shine a light, like a
Hmm.
flashlight underneath them and see the peas inside. And really, once the peas are big enough, you know, pea size, it's fine to pick them. Um, when you pick them green, it is easier to cook them. You can kind of just cook them, like fresh peas, boil them for a little bit. They get pretty soft. Um, but you can also harvest them when they're brown and dry. Um, and in that case, you would just treat them like, dried peas where you soak them for, I mean, I usually soak them for about 5 or 6 hours,
Okay.
and then I'll boil them. You can see this one back here is just laid over, but it is producing very heavy.
Yeah, got a ton of them on there.
And, we were talking before about the, selling seeds for these. You can see all the cells in this. So this would probably be 2 packs of seeds just on this one branch once this dried out.
So how close are those to consumption?
Probably like 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been on there for probably 2 weeks. And I mean, it could be 2 or 3 weeks, but once the pea pods come on, they do produce pretty quickly. And then it's everything you can do to keep up with the harvest.
Hmm.
It's kind of out there every day. That's why I do like letting some of them dry out before I harvest, because then you can put them in a jar and store them for a long time. The green peas pods, they're going to need to be cooked right away. Whereas the dried ones, you can let them sit. But the pollinators, bees, wasps, flies, pretty much everything can get in these flowers and they go crazy while this stuff is going off.
Yeah.
So I move over here just to kind of show how I'm using the pigeon peas. You can see another one up here, full flower. I'm stalking through the Napier grass right now. It needs to be cut.
It's like Michael Myers here.
Yeah, that's what I need. I need Michael Myers out here with a machete, cutting some of this down.
Yeah, you do.
And you can see I've got them interplanted with the moringas, but they're on the sides. Wow, I got blurry of this bed here.
Yeah, those are
And
tall.
I've got another one. I had a my perfect pigeon pea. It was right by the pathway, and I pruned it a lot. Not this one. It was the very first one to start flowering, and so it was going to be the very first one that I harvest off of. You can see this one had just started flowering, so it's going to be probably another month before we get peas off that. But then, uh, oh, here's another one. And you can see that loquat in the background. You recognize that?
I was just gonna yeah, I see it in the foreground there now.
It's going to get in the ground someday. So you can see here how I prune them, very straight up. It's leaving me a lot of room to get around them. This one has started to bush out, but here is the downside of pruning them straight up. You can see how thick this trunk had gotten. This
Hmm.
was like the oldest pigeon pea that was out here. But then we had a really bad windstorm, and now it's topless.
Ouch.
It
Yeah.
it was probably about 12 feet tall.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and all of those top branches came down. But it's not really a any harm. It just means we got to wait another week or so until we can harvest.
So it's a perennial plant. How long do they live?
So it is a perennial. It's a short-lived perennial. And I mean, they can really live anywhere from, you know, 3 to 10 years. I think usually around like the 3 to 4 year mark, they start being a lot less healthy.
Okay.
Um, they don't have a very hard wood, and so fungal diseases can get in there pretty easily. Plus, they're you know I'm a lot less gentle on my pigeon peas than I am, say, the avocados or the loquats. When I'm pruning branches off of this, sometimes I'm just ripping stuff down with my hands, and that doesn't leave for clean wounds that are easy to heal. Um, but it's such a fast growing plant, and really, if they lived too long, you know, they would just be taking up space. It's so easy to cycle them and just plant some new ones the next year. Most of these that I have will stay into next year at least, but then I probably will terminate them, you know, at the end of the year when the new ones have taken up and started producing. So usually for me, I treat it as like a biennial plant, like a 2 year plant.
Okay. Um, I've never made you know,
Gandules Caneros.
yeah, gandules con arroz. So I'm curious, are you taking the green pods or the brown ones, soaking them, boiling them, and those are the peas that go in the gandules con arroz?
Yeah, either way. And you got to shell them. You got to get the peas out. That's kind of the process that people don't like anymore. Nobody shells their own peas. But they're pretty easy to shell. You can turn on a TV show, get, maybe 4 to 6 cups in an episode, whatever. Um, if you're doing green, it's really easy. I mean, same thing. I like to boil them a little first, and I'll boil them for like 20 minutes. I'll throw that water out, and then I'll cook them in with the rice. If you were doing the dried pods, same thing. You got to shell them. The peas, one thing to know is the peas get much smaller when they dry up. I'd say about half the size of the green ones. And, it's probably same nutrient density. It's just, less liquid in there. Um, but when they're dry, you soak them, then you pre-boil them, then you mix them in with your rice or however else you're cooking them. Uh, you know, there's this, I mean, it's a pretty traditional crop, really, gandules, so traditional that you can buy a can of them.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing that I find, I mean, it's not too fascinating, but it's just interesting. There's so many different colors of pigeon peas, and I've come across some very pretty ones. I had a friend that they were almost purple with red speckles all over them.
The
And
flower or the pea pods?
the actual pea inside,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, it was red speckled. And I mean, commonly you're either going to get a tan one or a black one, the peas. And sometimes you'll get like a tan speckled one. But I saw one recently that it was still green, but it had red speckles on the green, which was really nice, but couldn't get any seeds from that because they weren't ready. And then the red one that I saw in the past, I did get seeds from, but when I grew it out, it was no longer red peas
Hmm.
because they're open pollinated. So, if you I mean, it's probably a recessive characteristic anyways, but to, you know, uh, increase the chances of getting red peas from a red peed pigeon pea, you'd want all the pigeon peas in the area to have those same red peas. So then it can, have a better chance of passing those traits along. If there's black pigeon peas or brown pigeon peas around, they're all cross pollinating, mixing all those genes. But that does mean, you can, you might be able to get seeds from, like, take a tan seed and end up with a different colored pea from it.
Hmm.
And I'd say the
Okay.
taste is pretty much the same for all of them. I don't think there's really any difference other than just the ornamental quality.
So, and forgive me if we had touched on this, but are you growing any for biomass or are you growing them for food production or
No, they're pretty much all for biomass.
okay.
Really, I only need one for food production. That'll be enough to fill up some of our boxes, take plenty for us to eat. Mostly these are biomass. When I'm pruning off those bottom branches, my favorite thing to do now is run them through the wood chipper. That small little electric wood chipper, it can pretty much, I cut down a 6 foot pigeon pea. It had a trunk, I mean, probably 3/4 inch.
Okay.
Uh, Ran the whole thing straight through it, turned it into nitrogen rich mulch.
Nice.
And you don't have to have the wood chipper, breaking off small branches, laying them around your plants. That's a perfectly good way to cycle that back into the soil too. But yeah, these fast growing plants, they're kind of the ideal thing to use for, chop and drop, especially anything in the Fabaceae family, because they're producing their own nitrogen and they're going to have more nitrogen than, than is available in the surrounding soil. So, and you don't have to decide if you're going to chop and drop it or eat it. You just plant multiple. You've
Yeah,
got
yeah.
6 in pots. So, plant 2 for food, plant 4 for feeding the food forest.
Sam, do you know what type of wood chipper you have? I'm curious now.
Oh, I don't. It's not a normal brand. It's green, but it's not a Ryobi. Next week, I'll bring a little picture of it. Maybe I'll have a video of me running something through it.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I'd like to do a couple videos too. When we were talking about, if you know where you plant your pigeon peas, well, I went to it's called Restore. I think the Habitat for
Oh, okay.
Humanity owns them. And contractors will bring things there and they can, they'll sell like reduced price furniture and stuff like that. Well, the one near me has a lot of like landscaping things.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I would buy the wooden dowel rods. So they might be a 3 foot wooden dowel rod. And for the sole purpose of cutting them either in half, so 1.5 foot or 1 foot, and I would use them as like a stake to stake the plant when I first planted it. And then it's wood, so eventually it would just rot and fall over and then go into the food forest. But I mean, I bought dozens of them, and some of them were just like 1/8 or 1/4 inch, and then they had dowel rods that were, 1/2 inch, 3/4
Huh.
inch. Um, so for me, I found use and value in it because I could take those. And also what I do now, especially if I was to go plant all those pigeon peas in the ground now, I would take those rods and stick them in there. One, so I don't step on them. And two, I know, okay, I've got something here. Um, so that's, maybe a helpful tip too for anyone out there. Uh, I will take shower curtain rods. I'll take the um, like broom handles, anything that people are throwing away, and I usually take those, any type of curtain rod really, as a as either a like a demarcation, or if I need something to prop up. It's funny, my papaya tree that's now 10 feet tall and this girthy around, it's almost broken the curtain rod that at one point was holding it up. So
The student has become the master. It's
yes,
now the
for sure.
support.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I mean, that's that's a great idea because especially in the food forest, we've got a lot of competing plants. You might have squash, sweet potatoes, different ground covers that will take over your seedlings. And if you didn't mark where they are, you know, good luck.
Yeah.
Uh, but we were talking about pigeon peas here. I'm pretty certain that pigeon peas at least don't root readily from cuttings. And so, I mean, I don't know if I've done it with the pigeon peas. I know I've done it with moringa, which does root, but these branches get real firm and they're not hardwood, but you can still use them as sticks in the yard. You're growing your own demarquee, dowel rods. And I mean, you could probably use them for all sorts of things, but I actually have a pigeon pea stick that I use to fetch the eggs in my chicken coop. It's dried up and I just leave it right there. When they lay the eggs too far in, I just use it to reach in. And it's been there for probably 4 months now.
Okay.
So yeah, they will hang around.
Resourceful. That's how the food forests should be.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Sam, did we miss anything about pigeon peas today?
Oh, I'm sure we did, but if y'all caught what we missed, whatever it was, leave it down in the comments. If you got more questions, we'll be happy to answer them there. Um, and let us know if you're growing pigeon peas this year and if you have any pretty red ones or maybe some other variations that I haven't even seen before. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, tag us on Instagram or Facebook and we'll share it. We love sharing, other people's stuff. That's how we learn. Um, and also if you're looking for something to watch while you want to break up all of your pea pods, this will be the perfect episode to put on. Just come back to this one
20-minute episode. Here
and
you go.
we'll
Got 6 cups
inspire
ready.
you. Maybe you're like, I don't know that I really want to. What do I do? You can watch this episode, learn something about. I mean, if you're breaking up pea pods, you probably know something about it. But hey, maybe there's something in here that this is the point of the episode where if you have something to contribute, comment down below. And if you learn something, comment and tell us what you learned. And other than that, Sam, I think that's about it. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and your consulting services?
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can check out Central Florida Abundance. If you're watching this over on Mike's channel, I'm on YouTube as well, mostly on Instagram and Facebook, though. All my contact info's there if you're interested in getting a garden consultation. And if you want some pigeon peas, check out igofarm.com. They're going to be in our produce boxes probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So you can check those out there. And I'm representing my shirt today.
Yeah, I actually gave away all my shirts. I got to order some.
Oh no.
The one
Well,
I do, the
maybe
one
you
I
can
had
buy
that we,
one.
the one that we showed in last week's episode was a schmedium, which definitely will not fit this boy here. So, and I think I'm gonna get a long sleeve one too. So, um, if you want to represent not just guerrilla gardening in general, but if you want to support the show, this here, the Guerrilla Gardening Show, you can head down to the link below. There's going to be some other cool fancy shirts going across your screen right now. So make sure you
Whoa.
head over there and check out some of the other funny garden punny dad joke type shirts that we have. And if you want to find more of me and the amazing content that I'm putting out, I don't know if I had mentioned this, but I've been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize because of all the amazing content that I've put out into the world. With your help as well, Sam, you can go to Mike's in the Garden on pretty much all of your social medias. And yeah, that's about it. Great episode, Sam.
Absolutely.